Well, the deadline to withdraw from the ACC was August 15th. It's August 16th now, and
you are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On this episode of Locked On ACC, I got to wonder, are there teams that are projected to finish near the bottom of the conference standings that aren't getting enough respect heading into the 2024 season? Kenton and I found someone who's higher on the Virginia Tech Hokies than we are. I didn't think outside of Blacksburg that was even possible. I do want to talk about a college football playoff committee criteria change that's a little bit of a puzzling one to us. We'll explain why. But Kenton Gibbs, he's Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. You know, Kenton, there was a lot of chatter up until about 3.5 weeks ago that Florida State and or Clemson would make some public declaration by August 15th that they were going to withdraw from the ACC. And it's August 16th now. You know, they haven't withdrawn.
Shocked. I'm so surprised, Donno. I'm so confused. I thought that it was all over. I thought they played their last game as members of the ACC. What happened? What's going on? Well, I'm so upset that I'm not prepared for this month. I'm lying. I knew I was right all along. I knew exactly what this situation was. We all knew that these deadlines weren't going to be important, at least the people without their tiger shaded or nose shaded glasses on. We all knew. We all knew. And I'll say this, because a lot of people like to say, oh, well, most of the logical fans already didn't expect. We'll call those logical fans to the front because your illogical ones are loud and wrong a lot. They're happily loud and wrong, and they're spreading their loud and wrong everywhere, like Ego was in what was it? Which is the one with the with Star-Lord and the raccoon?
Oh, the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, like in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, he's a lot like Ego. He's just that your loud and wrong ones are spreading their loud and wrong everywhere. And we're here to get it under control because we told you. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Oh, look, the deadline passed and they're not withdrawn. We knew. We told you that the courts have to play out, and there are very strong repercussions to trying to circumvent the court. There will always be repercussions to that. So here we are. The 15th has passed, and oh, look at that. Still got 15 members, huh?
Well, and I just want to add that, like, here on Locked On ACC, we're not right about everything all the time, but we have been, to this point, we've been right. And more importantly, we've been consistent on this one. Because Kenton, you and I have been called haters because of shows we did 3-4 months ago. Hell, sometimes even 3-4 weeks ago, we've been called haters because we said, hey, they're not going to withdraw by the deadline. When you watch certain other content creators every other day, it's like, oh, they're going to withdraw by tomorrow. Now they're going to withdraw by next week or the week after that. We don't move the goalposts here on Locked On ACC. We've been pretty consistent on this one. Now, a couple of things, because again, I feel uncomfortable, taking a victory lap. I just wanted to let people know we've been consistent on this. But a couple of things. First of all, the fact that Florida State and Clemson didn't withdraw by the August 15th deadline. Now, what the August 15th deadline was, it doesn't mean they're never going to leave the ACC. We believe that they will. It just means they missed the deadline to exit the conference by the start of the 2025 football season. So this means now the earliest that Clemson and Florida State could play outside of the ACC banner, the earliest that could happen would be starting with the 2026 football season. So that may now be where people put the target and the bullseye before they start moving the goalposts again, if it comes to that. But 2026 is now the earliest they could join another conference. That's number one. And then number two, okay, maybe this news that the deadline came and went, that might have surprised some people up until about 3-4 weeks ago, because there was a lot of buzz, especially on the Florida State side, that, hey, they might make a formal declaration of withdrawal by that August 15th deadline. But Kenton, about 3 weeks ago, I remember the day because it was July 22nd, the day that the ACC kickoff was starting in Charlotte on July 22nd, was when that morning Pete Thamel of ESPN reported that they would not make any declaration by the deadline. Do not expect that to happen. So I wasn't sitting up checking my notifications last night until midnight to see. I wasn't expecting either side to withdraw. So this news may have been surprising to some people up until a few weeks ago, but over the past 3 weeks since the Thamel report, you really shouldn't have expected anything like this to happen.
No, I 1,000% agree. It should not have been the expectation that, hey, these guys are going to do something that is deleterious to not only the ACC, but themselves at a very high clip. They're going to do something that is going to put themselves in even more legal crosshairs. They're going to do something that will cost them their money at the gate, as well as their TV rights, potentially in perpetuity, because we all know that courts, they say justice should be blind, but every now and then Lady Justice lifts up little eye cover and says, "Did you just try to sperm me? Oh, don't worry about it, buddy. Now I'm gonna come down on you twice as hard." As the old saying goes, breaking rocks in the hot sun. You fight the law, and the law won. It will win every time. So I'm not surprised by these teams not making that declaration, because even if you do say, well, they were still going to respect the legal process even after making that move, that's fine. But then you have to get into the legal process with another conference. And what conference wants you when you potentially have a $500 million ticket hanging over your head?
Yeah, it comes back to that phrase that Brett McMurphy used in his report a couple weeks ago, disruptive partner, right? That if anyone may be concerned, and by anyone, I mean the Big Ten or the SEC, if there's any concern or reservation about adding Florida State, he used the phrase, they've been a disruptive partner. Well, yeah, I mean, if they were to make a declaration before they can actually leave right, it would really make no sense outside of, we're just trying to make this power move and we're trying to make a declaration basically for the sake of public relations. But maybe the public relations on that would be bad. Maybe that would be negative PR. Win the legal cases first, or at least settle the legal cases first, because we can all define winning or losing in different ways. I think for Florida State and Clemson, being able just to leave the conference would be a victory. So there are more steps that have to take place before they can make a declaration. Maybe that declaration will happen next year before the August 15th deadline. But we have a lot more to get to on this episode of Locked On ACC. Kenton and I have been higher on the Hokies than most, but we've got a ceiling for Virginia Tech. Well, another national reporter seems to have a higher ceiling for the Hokies than we have. We'll talk about that and so much more. We're only getting started, my friends, on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. You want to keep it locked. And we're only getting started with FanDuel. Guys, we've been winning money, having a blast all summer long, and we're coming up to the start of ACC football. Got Florida State, almost 2 touchdown favorites in Ireland against Georgia Tech. That game is just over a week away. You can get some action on that. Florida State minus 13. You can get action on who's going to win the conference, who's going to win the Heisman. The college football betting possibilities are endless, and you can find all of it at FanDuel. And by the way, it's still summer, and this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Also, for your next listen, make sure you check out the other shows that Kenton and I do. He co-hosts Locked On Wolfpack. I co-host Locked On Canes. So between the two of us and Grayson, who co-hosts with Kenton, we take you all around everything Miami Hurricanes, everything North Carolina State Wolfpack, and we cover all the other stuff here on Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Kenton, I think you and I, what do we have Virginia Tech finishing? You might have had it a little bit different than I did. I think I had the Hokies finishing 4th in the ACC was the way I filled out my ballot. I think we were both around 4th or 5th. Do you remember where you had the Hokies?
I believe it was 5th or 6th myself. I believe they were about that range myself, which, again, most people think is pretty high.
Actually, I'm sorry. I think I had them 5th. I had them 5th as well, actually, because I'm thinking it through in my head with Miami, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina. See, I think I had the Hokies right behind NC State at 5th.
Yeah. And I that's also where I had them slotted because, again, their floor is very low. Their ceiling is very high. And so how do you rate a guy like that? How do you rate a team like that? What do you say, right? And in terms of the fact that, hey, I'm not betting my rent on this. I'm not betting my car note on this. I'll go ahead and put them fairly high because I'm going to go with a ceiling here. And I see them as having a ceiling that's fairly high. So I think that works out. But apparently there are folks who see a ceiling for them beyond what I think, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and if you're expecting us to say conference champions, it's not that. But I did find it interesting. I was looking at Stewart Mandel's newsletter on The Athletic, and he gave his prediction for how the ACC is going to finish 1-17. And he's got Virginia Tech finishing 3rd in the conference, Kenton. He's got Florida State 1st, which is the way most people go. He's got Miami 2nd. A lot of people have Clemson 2nd. He's got Miami 2nd. Then he's got the Hokies 3rd. So I was going to say, he's our boy for being high on Virginia Tech, but he's not your boy because he's got the Wolfpack finishing 5th. He's got NC State behind Clemson at number 4 and then NC State at number 5. So he's not your boy after all.
So here's the thing, right? I'm going to still rock with you because I like people who are willing to be different. And in terms of do I see an ACC championship for Virginia Tech? No. But if somebody were to tell me, is it possible for that team to get to Charlotte at the end of the year? I'd say yes. Because of how their schedule works out and because of the holes that I see with other teams, that their schedule is soft enough to where they may not be tested at some of their weak points. I could absolutely see them there. With that being said, I think putting them at 3 is really high. Because again, I want to put you high because of your ceiling, but your floor is also a reality. And I don't want to be that guy that's like, they're going to go to the ACC championship because I believe that they could get there, when in reality, their floor is about 8th to 10th. I think that's an honest floor for them because if everything goes, not everything, but a lot of things go wrong like we saw last year, Ali Jennings is a star. I don't care what conference he's in. He is a bona fide star. The only thing is he was banged up all last year. So you didn't get to see this phenomenal receiver that dominated Virginia Tech secondary at Old Dominion, ladies and gentlemen.
They got Old Dominion on the schedule again this year.
And that's what I'm saying. Ali Jennings is a star. If he can stay healthy, if everybody can add in, grow a year from what they were last year, and they can find a way to be more proficient at getting teams behind the chains, and Kyron Jones takes the next step, I'm telling you right now, this team, the sky's the limit.
Well, and they've got one of the easier schedules in the ACC, but you know what? Even their non-conference schedule is weird because they face the easiest SEC opponent possible. They play against Vanderbilt, which the Hokies are favored in that opener. They should win that game, and then we can flex that ACC beats the SEC again. We will certainly use that for our agenda. But they've got Vanderbilt, which is on the road. They play Marshall at home, which I guess could be a tricky game. They're at Old Dominion, definitely could be a tricky game for them. They're home against Rutgers, which, listen, I'm a Miami guy, so I can tell you that's not going to be an easy game. Schiano actually has some really good players there, and they're very physical at Rutgers. They play on the road at Miami on a Friday night. They play at Stanford, which shouldn't be that tough of a game, but a tough road trip. Home against Boston College, home against Georgia Tech, at Syracuse, home against Clemson. So they do have some tough conference games. At Duke, home against Virginia, and that's it for their regular season schedule. So I don't know. There's the Miami games, the Clemson games are tough for them. The Old Dominion game could be tricky. The Rutgers game could be really tricky. I see them probably in the 7-5, 8-4 range.
So here's why I said they have a schedule that it's about, can that schedule take advantage of their weaknesses?
Yeah.
You have multiple teams that run the ball well. Shiano and Rutgers, like you said,
Yeah.
physical. That's where they hang their hat. They hang their hat on those boys from New Jersey are going to come and want to thump on you. That's what they want to do. However, if you get them down early, it makes you have to abandon your game plan. Same thing for Miami. Miami, for all that we talk about Cam Ward and how good he is, Damian Martinez and how physical of a runner he is and how decisive he is as a runner, if you get them behind, you won't have to deal with Mark Fletcher and Damian Martinez in all these different ways coming downhill at you 35, maybe 40 times. You won't have to deal with it. Lastly, Clemson. Now, I want to say this. All three of those games or every one of them except Rutgers is at home, correct?
No, Miami game's on the road as well.
Okay, Miami is on the road. Okay. Miami is on the road, and I'll tell you, if Miami does what they're supposed to do,
the Rutgers game is home, actually.
Okay, so every game is home except Miami.
Yeah.
All of those games, and I mean this from a very genuine standpoint, there's nothing like playing in Lane Stadium. There's nothing like it. There is not. People tell you about Enter the Sandman. I watched it growing up. I experienced it once in my life. It is different. I am telling you, as a football player, all your life, you grow up going to these different camps, go to these different schools, all that. And every now and then, being from Southeast Michigan, sometimes we had to play a school in the boonies where it was like traveling and you'd like see civilization for a bit. And then you'd have 5-10 minute drive of nothingness. Going to Virginia Tech, outside of Lane Stadium, there is nothing for at least 15 minutes in almost every direction.
I have been there. I called a college basketball game there once, and outside of going to the actual basketball game, did not leave my hotel room. Had no desire to do so. It's an uncanny valley thing where you're like, it is a college town, right? It's supposed to be There's nothing, and then you walk into everybody, you getting live and all that, and then all of a sudden, everything is deadly silent when it's time for that team. Everything is but that's neither here nor there. I'm saying all that to say your only away game is at Miami, who, let's just be honest, for all of the passion that Miami fans have, if that team does not do what they're supposed to do early, right? We have seen Miami crowds when that team is not good. We've seen it. It's a high ceiling, low floor situation. If they're 4-0 heading into that game, it's going to be a fantastic crowd. If they're 2-2 heading into that game, it's going to be ugly.
And that's what I'm saying. So Virginia Tech has the opportunity to, again, be in either friendly confines or not necessarily scary confines in all of their big games this year, in all of their toughest games this year. So, they could have a year. They could pop out with one of those surprising, did Virginia Tech win 10 games that year? Type of years. They could do it. But would I bet the house on that? No, I would not. Yeah, I agree with you that 8-4, 7-5 is about where I see them being.
That's where I see it. I want to see their win total is up to 7.5 now on FanDuel. So if I'm feeling froggy, I would take the over, but I don't see it being much better than 8-4. But you know what? I think that'd be a good season for them, a really good season for them, and it would show you that they're building something special there. Something interesting made the news this week about the college football playoff altering their criteria. But if they're altering it to be this, then how come they left out an undefeated ACC champion that last year? We will explain. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Don't go anywhere. And I hope you're keeping it locked to the GameTime app. This is the only ticket app that we use because not only are we getting the best deals, just the most pleasurable experience, but we're getting the best prices, especially last minute. I love to procrastinate. Usually, karma doesn't reward me for saving things up until the last minute. Karma doesn't, GameTime does, because the prices get lower the closer you get to kickoff, first pitch, tip-off, whatever. Guys, you could save up to 60% buying last minute on the GameTime app. And GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app go down the closer it gets to the event. Guys, you could save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. They've got an all-in pricing feature, which means you can see the exact price up front without hidden fees at the end. I would highly recommend utilizing that. You can also get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcast. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So this is news, I guess, that came out yesterday that the college football playoff won't use conference titles as tiebreakers anymore. And I understand why they're not doing that now, Kenton, because conference titles are now built into the framework that the top 4 rated conference champions will have the top 4 seeds and the first round buys. So we're not using, conference championships as a tiebreaker after that. But then my question would be, if they were previously using conference championships as tiebreakers, how did you leave out a 13-0 conference champion? I guess, Kenton, I don't know what the other tiebreakers are, but I guess a starting quarterback with 2, non-broken legs, I guess that was higher on the list, which, again, I disagree with. I think Florida State earned a spot last year.
For those of you who are listening and not watching, my head was just cocked in a very awkward angle for the beginning of what Donno said, because I am confusion. If I could turn my head at 360 like the Mad Hatter, I would do it, because I'm so shocked. I'm so surprised that was actually a criteria. Yeah. How was that a criteria in the past? I am going to say this. Everybody, for all of the talk about Florida State fans, and they're conspiracy theorists, and now they're pushing that Florida, that the standing up for Florida State got RG3 fired from ESPN and all
and
that.
Sam Ponder as well, apparently.
This is anybody with FSU ties is getting fired up out of there. I'm going to tell you, all of this stuff is adding together to be very damning. Yeah. It really is. Because what do you mean that was used to solve tiebreakers? So what you are telling me, what you are de facto telling me, by saying that you're no longer using that as a tiebreaker, because yes, Donno, you're right. It is built into the formula in terms of, hey, highest 4 conference champs get a bye. I get that. But I'm confused in that if it was used as a tiebreaker last year, are you saying that all of the other teams, including those with losses that got in last year, were so much better than Florida State, you didn't even have to take a serious consideration of, like, are they tied? Are they neck and neck? Do we want to punish them for losing a quarterback more than we punish a loss? Right. Being the question.
Well, I mean, they need to admit they'll never do this, but we already know that the real tiebreaker is, who do we think is going to make the most money based on television ratings? Right? Like that's and nobody wants to admit that was the real tiebreaker was, well, if Jordan Travis can't play, they probably don't have a chance, so let's not put him in. But they didn't want to outright say that, but I don't know what you can hide behind now that we realize that, apparently Conference Champions was a tiebreaker. And just so folks know, this is not just a Florida State issue. This is an ACC issue, because you don't automatically solve everything by going to 12 teams. Because believe me, we're going to have arguments about, hey, how come a 10-2 ACC team was left out so an 8-4 SEC team could get, there's still going to be stuff that's not going to sit right with us with this 12-team playoff.
I'll tell you what, if a 4-loss team gets into the playoff, they better have multiple wins over single-digit teams, over single-digit.
I think the only team that has a chance, I don't think it's going to happen, but the only team that has a chance is Florida. Because if you've seen Florida's schedule, if they find 8 wins in that schedule, they probably should be in the playoff.
Well, I mean, I know that Florida has the toughest schedule in the country, literally, in terms of what ESPN is ranked and all that. But I don't think anybody's schedule is good enough to warrant losing. You lost 1/3 of your games. Yeah. Every time you walked on the field, there was a 1 in 3 chance that you walk off a loser. And they're just like, yeah, you play really tough teams. Well, what the hell is the playoff? You're going to play more tough teams. So with that in mind, this is very damning. And this looks terrible. And again, FSU fans, I don't enjoy making fun of FSU fans. I want to say that right now. I mean that from a very genuine standpoint. And so with that being said, things like this make the FSU fans more and more vindicated every day. They really do. Because I'm still on your side in terms of that's a snub. I may not be on your side in terms of leaving the conference or whether or not to run. I may not be on your side there, but I am on your side for you all got snubbed. And again, I'm struggling with the concept of, well, conference championships were the tiebreaker, but these two teams were head and shoulders above them. An Alabama team that barely beat Auburn, that they got the wheels whooped off them at home by New Mexico State. Because everybody loves to say, oh, that Florida State team barely beat a bad Florida team. My brother in Christ. I don't know if y'all know how rivalries work. There's a reason they say throw out the records.
Yeah.
There's a reason. So, there's all of the things that were used against Florida State. Either they already were shown to be BS in the past or they're coming to light as BS now, which is very disappointing.
So going back to the ACC standings, our predicted standings of how it's going to finish. Is there any team you feel like maybe gets outright disrespected with the preseason narratives? Because like almost everybody on God's green earth is picking Stanford to finish dead last. Most people have Boston College in their bottom three and Virginia in their bottom three. Like, do you think any of these teams that people automatically pencil in as bottom feeders could actually surprise us in a positive way this year?
I don't know if this is a hot take, but I'm not going to leave the triangle. I'm going to go with Duke. Everybody thinks Duke is going to be terrible. But if Malik Murphy is what everybody says he is at quarterback, what he showed at Texas in his limited action, if Manny Diaz, who is a defensive guy, can put together a defense that's as swarming as last year's was, and I get it. There's going to be a drop-off in talent, not quite the same guys. They could find their way into a bowl game. And maybe even beyond that, maybe go for 7-8 wins if they find a way to, again, Malik Murphy, be the guy that everybody thinks you are, be that special guy. And then beyond him, the defense has to get right. We can see it.
Yeah. And I'm very curious to see what Manny Diaz does there because Kenton, and I had this conversation with JJ Jackson a few weeks ago when I was talking Duke with him, that I'm very much of the mind that you aren't defined by your first head coaching job, that you can evolve and you can improve, because the Manny Diaz that I covered at Miami, I felt like was not good at the CEO parts of the job, that it was He's shown over and over again to be a very good defensive coordinator. He's shown that at multiple stops. He's crushed it at Penn State, absolutely crushed it. But can he bridge that gap into overseeing the entire organization? And maybe he can, because I don't think if people defined Bill Belichick on his first couple of head coaching jobs, wouldn't have gone on to be the legend that he became in New England. So you can absolutely, I'm not saying Manny Diaz will be Bill Belichick, but bear with me. I think you can evolve and improve. So I'm curious to see what he can do there at Duke, and especially how much of an impact he can have the first year, because some of Duke's top talent from last year under Elko have left the program, including Riley Leonard. That's why, like you said, we got to see if Malik Murphy is the real deal or not. And we're going to find that out this year. A huge shout out and thank you to everybody who made Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to smash that thumbs up button, hit that like button, and subscribe. If you listen to the audio version, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods. And let's all be excited, because the next time we speak, we're going to be less than a week away from ACC football. So we'll talk to you then on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.